So I'll record and I will allow all people in. Sound good?
I do have a quick suggestion that
Please.
we take 1720 Chestnut first. I think it'll be faster and less complex.
I think a lot of people are here for 2129,
So-
which is
Hi, I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Airbnb. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you for your thoughts. I think
Everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Sorry, my name is Rebecca Frisch. I am co-chair of the CCRA zoning committee with Veronica here. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. We are excited to get started for today. So thank you for joining us. Okay, well, welcome to the Center City Residents Association Zoning Committee. CCRA is a 75-year-old nonprofit civic association. As a nonprofit, we encourage everyone to become a member, which can easily be done through our website. There are several benefits to being a member, one of which is being notified of all proposed zoning changes within our area. CCRA is the recognized RCO, registered community organization for our area. Our boundaries are from South Street to JFK and Broad Street to the Schuylkill River. Our committee works as follows. First, applicants are to present. We ask that applicants address the specific refusals or referrals. We ask for no interruptions, as applicants can just give a full presentation. After the presentation, the zoning committee will have a chance to ask questions. And then once everyone from the committee has had a chance to ask questions and they're answered, then we'll open up questions to the community. When you're addressed to make your comment or question, we just ask that you keep your question succinct and relevant to the variance. Try not to repeat other people's questions. If you agree, you're welcome to just state that you agree. And when you do, when you are addressed, we just ask that you state your name and address so that we understand where you live in relation to the property. And if there's a spokesperson, we just ask that that person speak and stand for the full group, just to expedite things. After we hear from all the applicants and listen to the community, our committee meets in a closed session and we vote in 3 ways: oppose, not oppose, or not oppose with provisos. The CCRA never votes in favor of any application. Our decision is emailed to the councilperson, the ZBA, and the applicant, and it's also going to be posted on our CCRA website. No matter how we decide, if you're concerned with a project, we strongly recommend that you attend the ZBA hearing. This is the best way to make your concerns known. CCRA zoning committee cannot express the neighbor's point of view. Only a property owner or aggrieved individual may express their personal concerns to the ZBA. With that said, I'm going to go through the agenda for today. And the first up on the agenda, I'm just going to go in the order that was already published. And that is 2129 Pine Street. So I would just now ask that applicant take the screen and go ahead. And sorry, this is an application for a visitor accommodation in an existing structure, and it is a refusal. So we will get refusals and referrals. For a refusal, the applicant is meant to demonstrate a real hardship of why they would be going against the zoning code.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Young. I'm the attorney representing the owner of the property 2929 Pine LLC. My client should be on this call. Ms. Ricky Lee is on this call. And we are here today to present the variance for various requests for 2129 Pine Street. Again, as stated, it is a variance. However, this is a new provision in the Philadelphia zoning code. As many may or may not know, recently the city changed the zoning code to basically ban all Airbnbs or visitor accommodations throughout the city in any zoning classification that is not zoned for commercial use. So essentially, it effectively stripped property owners of this ability to rent their properties for temporary lodging without first going to the zoning board to prove for a variance request. And as stated, this is not the typical type of variance request where we have to prove an actual hardship upon the property for the particular use. I think here, what we intend to do is try to just appeal to you guys as the community to show that our particular use is not detrimental to the neighborhood. It's not detrimental to the community. It is, in fact, we believe, an asset to the community and provides a necessary service that many folks need. I'm sure most folks on this call is familiar with Airbnb. Many of us have used them in our travels throughout the country, throughout the world, essentially. And they provide a safe, private accommodations for travelers and visitors. And so that is what we are attempting to do here with 2129 Pine Street. This particular property is currently under renovations, and it has 6 units. And the unit count breakdown is as follows. There are 2 studio units on the first floor, and the second through third floor consist of a total of 4 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. Now, although we are applying for visitor accommodations for the entire building, my client does not expect to rent all 6 units out in this particular building for Airbnb all at one time. The issues we're having here is that my client rents the property out to folks in the city on a month-to-month basis. However, there are months where there are no tenants in the properties. And so because there are still the debts and liabilities on the property, we're asking, for some relief from that by allowing some temporary short-term rentals at the property until a tenant can be obtained, for the month-to-month duration. I know many folks who are on this call may be familiar with the city's landlord-tenant laws. The landlord-tenant laws in the city are very, very, very tenant-friendly. And so this type of use allows some flexibility for a property owner to still maintain some use of their property and some income coming in from the property without having to deal with the I believe overly burdened landlord-tenant laws here in the city. I also practice landlord-tenant law in the city, and can tell you that sometimes it takes years to get someone out of your property, given the COVID restrictions and things like that. So we're just asking for some flexibility to allow this particular type of use, at this property. My client maintains, other multiple Airbnb type uses in this particular area. All of her units are hardwired with smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. All of her units have cameras in all of the common areas. Her booking, when booking the rooms, there are certain rules and regulations that must be abide by. There are no parties allowed at these particular units. And to be quite frank, these units are too small to have parties of the like. To give an example, the first floor front unit is only 262 square feet. The first floor rear unit is 412 feet. Second floor front unit, 335 square feet. Second floor rear unit, 384 square feet. The third floor front unit, 286 square feet. And the third floor rear unit is about 308 square feet. So our unit sizes are just about the size of a typical hotel room. And again, we're asking for that flexibility because we know that there are a lot of travelers throughout that come through the city, again, that want that private space. There are, a lot of parents of students who visit the city who would like some private space. And that is in this option that we're attempting to provide, meets a market need. And in this particular area, there are other similar Airbnb type uses that I actually have a map where I can share my screen to show members of the community what, where they are, just so you can get a sense that these uses are there, have been there for some time, because this law is very recent. And from my understandings, knowing this, having familiarity with this, with Center City, I haven't heard of any issues, particularly coming from my clients' properties regarding Airbnbs. So what I like to do, if you can all share my screen, see my screen rather. I'm trying to enlarge it for you. But basically, where the circle is 2129 Pine. If you look where all the purple circles are, those are current Airbnb listings in the neighborhood. So again, there are multiple listings in the neighborhood that kind of blend in with the neighborhood and provide again a service to many travelers and of the like that come in to visit our city and to spend time in our city. And so what we want to do is provide that space for them to operate. We have 24/7 cameras and monitor those cameras 24/7. And with that, I guess we would take any questions from the community, from the neighbors, just to see if we can gain your support.
Well, thank
Who
you.
is the owner? It's listed as 2129 Pine LLC, which is not a she. So who's the owner?
The owner's name is Ricky Lee. She's on the call.
I'm the owner.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry, if you would like to say anything as the owner, as the applicant, that would be fine. If not, I think I just want to open this up to the committee for starters.
Rebecca, do you want us to just chime in?
Yeah, so I think I wanted to just have anybody from the committee that would like to speak to start with questions. You can raise hand, but I'm not going to call everybody's name on the committee. All right, I see Ben Weintraub. If you want to ask, go ahead and ask a question.
Thank you. I know that the law was implemented or is being enforced as of the beginning of the year. Anyone clarify, Wade, I don't know when it was actually written. Hasn't it been a few years since they actually wrote this one?
Yeah, I believe it was 2021, I believe, when this law was first introduced.
Okay. Wade, do you have that information? If it was 2021?
So you're talking about the bill that recently changed the landscape?
Yes, the
It-
ordinance, I think.
Yeah, the ordinance was passed. Mr. Young is correct. It was passed and signed into law last, I think in 21, and then went into effect at the very beginning of this year.
Great, thank you. All right, Andre?
Yeah, so I just want to ask, like, how far in advance is an Airbnb booking usually made compared to a long-term monthly booking? Like monthly standard tenant?
Is that a question for the applicant?
Yeah, for the applicant. Like, how long in advance do you usually have a monthly lease start, or like planned in advance, versus how long in advance do you usually have an Airbnb in advance?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking as far as the marketing goes for our, when the property is marketed to a month-to-month tenant, how far in advance do we know that we're going to have a month-to-month tenant versus booking using that particular unit for Airbnb use?
Yeah.
Okay. Ricky, how can you just go through the marketing of your units when you have month to month tendencies?
So when we do the month to month, probably we have to try to do it at least over a month ago. So probably around 2 months ahead of time. But when we do the Airbnb, what we do is we're trying to run the months out. But in between, sometimes there's days and vacancy, then we have it open for the Airbnb. So if people book for the whole month is 1 or 2 days, we will try to either move them to or tell them, sorry, we have to run it out for a whole month, because that doesn't make any economic sense for 1 or 2 person booked for the next month, and we cannot run it out to somebody else for the whole month. So it's kind of like a case by case issue. But we just at least try to do 2 months ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm a little concerned that the applicant may be trying to the Airbnbs to avoid landlord-tenant regulations that are good for many people in the city.
Well, if I may, we're not trying to avoid landlord tenant regulations. It's in this, from my client's experience, having month-to-month tenants still have to abide by landlord tenant regulations. So if she has a month-to-month tenant, she has current rental licenses and things like that. So if a month-to-month tenant say doesn't want to leave, we still have to go through the traditional eviction process and eviction steps to get that tenant out. So we're not trying to avoid those regulations. What we're trying to do is allow some flexibility in the use when there is not a month-to-month tenant at the property.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm just gonna remind us that these should be zoning related questions. So I'm going to go ahead and call on actually Veronica, my co-chair, because she cannot raise hand, but she is on the committee. So Veronica, did you have a question?
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes. So thank you for this, your presentation and your clarifications. I just wanted to confirm that I understood the zoning ordinance correctly. It's my understanding that if an individual lives in a unit for at least 6 months of the year, they have the right to have a short-term lodging license, and they can rent out their property as an Airbnb. And it's my understanding also that if a property owner wants to put up a property for an Airbnb short-term rental, they can do that with no problem if they're in one of 8 zoning classifications: CMX 345, RMX 123, and CA 12. And so I understand the only time that a property owner comes in front of a zoning committee is if their zoning classification is if they own the property, don't live there, but the zoning classification is an RSA 5 or RM1. So I'm wondering if you can just remind us what your zoning classification is.
Our zoning classification here is RM1.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. And I'm going to call on Bob Lane.
Thank you, Rebecca. I just have a question for the applicant's lawyer. What you've described sounds much like a hotel. Why is your client looking to put a hotel in this residential area as opposed to in the part of the city that is planned and zoned for hotels?
Well, again, it's not a traditional hotel use. I mean, when Airbnbs and similar companies, broke through the market as a disruptor in that market, these types of uses became very popular and became very popular with travelers. Because when some folks travel, they want to stay in an area that has a more neighborhood feel to it rather than staying in some busy commercial corridor. And again, as the property owner, and before this bill passed City Council, these uses were allowed by right as long as other certain requirements were met. We're again just trying to maintain these uses.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, these units are they're quite small units. So for have them to rent them on the market, long term, it just it can cause some problems.
Thank you. Douglas, did you have a question or comment? You can
Douglas,
unmute.
you're muted.
Has anyone asked the neighbors, gotten any permissions or any feedback from the neighbors on this?
The zoning committee has received a lot of negative letters from the neighbors on this. And I'm sure that many of those neighbors are gonna probably want to speak up once we're done with the committees.
No other questions.
Thank you. Ben Zuckerman?
If this is not approved for these short-term visitor accommodations, what will you be doing with the properties?
Ricky, do you want to answer that? If we aren't approved for the visitor accommodations, what are your long-term plans for the property?
Well, we'll still probably continue to do what we do, plan, run it as a month to month. It just, so I probably have a lot harder financial burden when they're vacant. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And I believe that is everybody from the committee that would like to speak. And now I'm just going to go in the order of the hands that I have seen raised. Earl Marsh, if you could please state your address and name. And you're muted.
Yes, my name is Earl Marsh. I live at 2130 Pine Street. I'm directly across from the property in question. The property appears to have been under significant renovation over the past 2 years. Ms. Lee, did you own the property prior to this renovation? And if so, was it on a month-to-month lease at that time? Were you doing 30-day leases at that time?
Oh, so when we bought the property, we have some tenant in there already. So some are months to months, some are not. And then that's the condition at that time. Mm-hmm.
But the property's, for all intents and purposes, been unoccupied as significant major renovations have gone on. I guess my question is, knowing that you would need a variance in order to have units, you could have addressed that in your renovations. And for what it's worth, my son's studio apartment is 295 square feet, including the bathroom. So they are rentable, and people do live in places like that. My one-bedroom apartment on another block of Pine Street when I was much younger was under 400 square feet. I lived there for 4 years, worked fine. So I don't see the size of the units as like a challenge to being rented.
Right. So Mr. Marshall, if I may, if I may add some clarity. So once those leases were up, when the building was acquired, the building was left vacant, and that's when the renovations started after those leases were up.
I also just want to note, this doesn't relate to zoning, that the renovation started without permits. So that's a problem, and speaks to how the owner treats the property and doesn't respect the neighborhood. Thank you.
If I may, add some clarity, the property has proper permits for the renovations and has gone through the historical commission and of the like for renovations. That I'm not the attorney when the was not at council when the renovation started. However, I can say now today that there are permits on the properties for renovation that has gone through the proper channels.
Yes, I understand that, but the renovations were started without permits, including windows that were replaced without historical commission approval. They don't meet the standard.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to Leon. If you could please state your name and address.
Hi, Leon Osprung. I live at the property at 2128 Delancey, which directly backs to this property. I believe that I directly back to the property. My question for the owner is, since the owner does not live locally here in the city, is there going to be a property manager or somebody? Because if there is noise complaints or problems at late at night, etc., who do the neighbors call, and how will the owner be able to take action to enforce issues that occur at the time of their occurrence? Thank you.
So again, the owner is local, may not live at the particular property itself, but the owner is local. There is a man, she has an entire team property managers that manages her properties. One of her property managers, I believe, is on the call right now. Again, as I mentioned, there's 24/7 monitoring, and when there is issues, particularly with Airbnb guests, if there are any violations that have occurred, Airbnb cancels their reservation, and if they refuse to leave the unit, the police can be called and they can be apprehended for trespassing on the property.
Thank you. Donna Gerson, if you could please state your address and name.
Hi, it's Donna Gerson and David Gerson. We're at 2118 Delancey, so we're catty corner to this property. We see it from the back. I guess I have just a procedural question to start, because I used to be on this committee, and my recollection is that an applicant would receive a list of addresses that are within the designated radius around the property, and was encouraged to reach out to those addresses to seek neighbor input. So the first question is whether or not that list was in fact provided, because the first we heard about this was last night and not from the applicant. And then the second question is simply for the committee, which is it not the case that one needs to demonstrate an actual hardship? Because if there is a need to demonstrate a hardship, it seems to me that the owner's choice to engage in a program of month-to-month rentals for the property as a whole creates its own hardship by opening up the property to a period in which it's not being completely rented. So, and I say that as someone who actually owns 63 rental units too. So I kind of am familiar with this process. So I'm just confused about these two procedural aspects, please.
No, you are correct. Mailers do need to be sent out, and perhaps, I guess
They were not.
they were not sent out. Okay. That is possibly a clerical error that we did not receive that and allowed this to go to the committee. We did receive a lot of letters from neighbors. And perhaps that was where the misconnect. So technically this shouldn't even be heard in this committee if the letters were not sent out. You are correct on that. And those are meant to be sent out with at least a week's time before the meeting so that we can prepare to vet this before it gets to the agenda. And then your second question about the refusal, yes. If in order for the zoning committee to recommend a non-opposition, they would typically need to have proof of some kind of a hardship for why the applicant wants to go against the zoning code. And that is something that we will clearly consider when we come to a decision as a committee, as well as obviously all of these neighbors' opinions.
If I
may address that question from Mr. Gerson, we did send out our mailings within the 250 feet radius. Those mailings were sent. I can pull up my proof of mailing that was sent. They were mailed out on January 6th. 2023, stamped by the post office. I actually took them to the post office myself. I mailed all these mailers myself. Took them to the main post office on 30th and Chestnut, and they were mailed.
Yeah, I believe we're 152 feet from the property, and I can assure you we didn't receive it either. But I will tell you, we do the same thing. We go to the main post office because we don't trust the blue mailboxes anymore.
I back to the property. I didn't get a letter.
If you want to share the screen.
I also back up the property and I didn't receive it.
And I believe Wade, our counsel, was going to speak as well.
Oh, I was just to say that I was going to ask for Jeff to. I'm sure that he has information about the certificate of mailings and.
This is Chuck Goodwin. I'm sorry to interrupt out of turn. I'm the immediate next door neighbor. There was, and I'm going to try, and I don't have a photograph I can share, but I'm going to try and get this on my camera. Okay, you can see. I don't know how well this comes through, but what you see is a letter that looks, for all intents and purposes, like junk mail to me. As a lawyer, something from Legis Group LLC seems like many commercial solicitations. It's addressed not to me, but to current resident. And then I don't even know if y'all can see on the screen.
And if you see on the bottom,
Mr. Young, may I finish, please?
Sorry.
In 6 or 8 point type on the front, about half the size of the address type. It says zoning meeting notice for 2129 Pine Street.
Chuck, this is
so I sort of can readily understand why my neighbors didn't see this. I didn't see this. I dug this out of a pile, of 3 months worth of junk mail that we hadn't gotten around to putting in the recycling.
Okay, I'm gonna
thank you, Carlos. Yeah.
Hold on. This is Wade Albert. I'm the attorney for CCRA. Chuck, I just wanted to, I know that you're going to have more comments later, and I don't want to, to stop you, but the letter that you showed me does not appear to violate any of the requirements under the zoning code. So it's very possible, and I think the point was well taken, that perhaps some residents received the letter, did not think anything of it, but it does appear that the letter was sent. And I'm sure if there's any questions, Jeff, if you could send us a copy of the certificate of mailing, just proof of that. You're an attorney. I'm taking your face value that you did mail everything January 6th. No reason not to believe that's not the case. So we could just move forward.
Thank you for clarifying that, Wade. Yes, I think that's the way to proceed.
Yeah, and again, I did not have, and I do not have access to everyone's name who owns a property, who lives in a property. I'm just given a list of addresses from the city, and they say, mail these letters to these addresses. And as you know, Mr. Goodwin put, I actually go through an added step on my letters to make sure that there's a notice on the front envelope that says zoning meeting and with the address property to provide a little bit more notice to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Young. And so then I think if you could just provide that, perhaps we got it lost in our files, then we can just file it appropriately and we will just remove any question or doubt. And then I believe there's only one person left on that would like to speak that has their hand raised, and it actually is Charles Goodwin, if you wanted to ask any questions.
More, I was just, I am the person who took a lead on coordinating with my neighbors about this property. So when you get to the segment where you want to hear from the neighbors about their opinions, you know, I just want to help you all move this along. And so everybody gets home early tonight. So however we can set that up.
Thank you. Okay, so I think if there's no more questions, I don't think the committee has any more questions for anybody, and I think we understand the community's feeling on the property and their stance. So I think we can move on to the second item of the agenda. Sorry.
I hear you, Chuck. Mr. Goodwin, you're done.
Sorry, is there anybody else have anything else that I didn't see any more raised hands?
Well, I don't think there was a discussion about opposing or supporting the proposal.
I think that happens after, that comes in closed session with just the committee.
Right. What I'd like to know is whether you want to hear from the neighbors and how we can facilitate this to make the process as easy on the committee as possible. I am the past president of the organization, Mr. Lane, and I've been to more than my share of zoning committee meetings. And I've got more than my share of really concerned neighbors, and Mr. Young and Ms. Lee have not said things that have really quieted any of our concerns.
Well,
And if we may be heard, we would like to be heard.
Well, we received all the letters. Thank you for organizing that. And I believe that the committee is hearing you, as I guess what I'm saying, and why I feel like it's.
No, that's certainly fine with me. And I think you all understand the block's 100% rented here. There's zero concern about the landlord will be just fine, and the use is unnecessary, as well as the city did regulate these because, you know, they were problematic. And Wade, feel free to give Mr. Young my email address, and I'm happy to facilitate more direct communications between the neighborhood and the landlord, or the landlord, the owner, so that, you know, I mean, we don't mean to run anybody out of business, and we're really grateful that this property, which has been something of a nuisance property on this block, is being renovated. We like the marble countertops and the stainless steel appliances. We think it's great, and we think you'll have no problem leasing it completely to grad students and young professionals who'll be starting out their lives there.
If I could jump in real fast. So thank you, Chuck. I just want to let you know that I've provided all of the emails and the letters that you sent to me today to Mr. Young. So he has your email address and he has them.
Yeah, and I did receive one from Marcia, who's on the call here, that came in at like 6:45 that I didn't get a chance to send on to you.
And those have also been shared with all of the committee members as well. So we understand, and thank you for organizing that effort.
So if I may, I mean, Mr. Goodwin mentioned that, you know, we have not addressed all of their the neighbors' concerns. And from my recollection of the letter, some of the concerns were, you know, about the property being potentially used as a nuisance and parties and things like that.
I'd like to, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I'd really like to move on. I think that we've all heard all sides of the case, and I think it's very clear what the next steps are. And
Jeff, please reach out to me. You've got my email. I think we've run across each other in Democratic circles. Happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And would you like us all to drop off so you have a smaller meeting now?
It's really up to you. This is still an open meeting and we have a few other items to get to on the agenda. The next item on our agenda is 2402 Spruce, which is zoned RM1. And this is the same.
You want to hear that?
Yeah, I do.
This is the same similar case as the previous one in terms of that this is a application for a visitor accommodations in an existing structure. And the proposed visitor accommodation is prohibited in this RM1 district. And I would like to open this up to the presenting applicant, please.
Again, members of the community, I am Jeffrey Young. I am representing the owner of the property, 2402 Spruce LLC, which is owned by Ms. Ricky Lee. And again, we are asking for a very similar use at this property. This property, excuse me, prior to the regulations going into effect, was used as an Airbnb in the community. And from our understanding and talking with neighbors, there has been no issues with the property being used as an Airbnb at this particular location. This has been an Airbnb for at least a year. And you know, again, we're asking for the community support. I can share my screen and show some pictures of what this particular property looks like, so the community can get a better sense. Again, that first property is currently under renovation, so we don't have any particularly good pictures, but I would like to show pictures of this particular unit at 2402. See if I can pull up my let's see. Okay. For some reason, my network is down. I'm sorry. Yeah, my network is down. I'm having difficulties pulling up this particular project here. I'm going to stop sharing and try to see if I can come back in. Please bear with me. I apologize again.
Can I ask a question? How many applications does Miss Lee have in this residential neighborhood? Total.
This is this. Sorry, there's 2 for today.
Yeah, in this area, there's a total of 2. All right.
I guess just given that we already went through this exact scenario, if you wanted to state anything given the hardship, I would just recommend that, and then we can just move on to the committee members.
Yeah. Again, then this particular property is closer to you know, some other community uses that we feel you know, an Airbnb is more suitable for. Again, we have folks traveling, folks visiting sick members at the hospital, and again, visiting their children at universities nearby, or just visiting the city in general. And again, same thing here at this particular property. Everything's hardwired, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, security cameras, and audio recording, 24/7 monitoring. And again, I just wanted to show, you know, some pictures of what the unit looks like. As you can see, this is the kitchen area of Unit 1. This is, you know, the Unit 1 in the rear. Again, studio use. This is Unit 2 in the front on the second floor. Again, this is what the studio looks like in Unit 2R. This is Unit 3F. Again, this Unit 3R in the rear.
All right, thank you. I'm just gonna stop you
yeah.
because that's not, I think we're just kind of going a little bit off topic
Yeah.
of the zoning, but thank you.
Yeah,
for-
I just wanted to show the community just what the units look like. They're typical Airbnb furnishings and things of the like. They're fully furnished units.
Great.
Rebecca, can I ask a question, please?
Yes. Please
Okay,
go ahead.
Charles Robin, on the zoning committee. Mr. Young, the units look very nice. I'm a realtor for over 30 years. I have over 300 apartments in the Rittenhouse Square area. To me, everything you demonstrated could easily be rented out on a 12-month basis, 6 months if you really wanted to. Your zone RM1, we've been through this many times. They are very, very nice apartments, all within the Rittenhouse Square, Fiddler Square area. It seems to me a term of 12 months to graduate students or young professionals is very reasonable. Do you have anything to say to
that? Again, as the client's business model goes, based on her experience, with the Tennessee market, month to month seems to be the best use for her and her business practices. And as we move forward with some vacancies, again, we just like to allow the use of the properties for some short-term rentals while there are any vacancies, even if there are vacancies in a year lease, right? Because once a tenant leaves, there's no guarantee that a new tenant will be coming right behind. So we just want to have that flexibility again to use the property while there is some vacancies and during that time where we're looking for a new tenant.
Understood. Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the committee that has a question or point that they would like to make? Okay, then at this time, I would just like to call on James Ronca. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. If you want to state your address, please. Oh, and unmute yourself.
Hi, Jim Ronca. I'm at 2404 Spruce. We are next door.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Can I share the screen?
We don't typically allow that, but if you just want to go ahead with your question.
Okay.
Keep it to zoning matters.
So we live next to the property. The property was long-term leases until this owner bought the property, I think approximately 2 years ago. Since that time, it was used as an Airbnb for a while. It is still advertised online for short-term leases with daily rates. So people are coming in day to day. People have parties there. They smoke marijuana there. They smoke cigarettes outside and then throw the cigarette butts in front of the houses. If you'd let me show the photographs that I have, I can show you how trash is left outside, not on the trash day, but on Thursday or Friday. Our trash day is Monday. Frequently, I could show you 20 examples. There are many more. The outside, you saw some pictures of the inside of the property. The outside of the property is derelict and is a blight on the neighborhood. Pieces of stone fall off the front. Again, I have photographs of this, and land on the sidewalk. An air conditioner fell out of a window and landed on the sidewalk. You saw that room with the bay window in the back. If you saw an outside picture, you'd see that the floor is separating from the bottom of that bay window. And I could show you it's been that way for more than 5 years. The back has an area that's supposed to be a garden. There's no access to it from the building. And it is just an overgrown mass of weeds that is prone to having rats. And I go out there and clean it out twice a year because no one who owns the property takes care of it. And it's been that way the whole time. Water collects on the outside because they don't have proper drainage in puddles. Let me see what other photos I have here. There are literally wires hanging out of electric boxes on the exterior of the building. Again, I have photographs of all these things. There have been noise problems. There is no one to contact. They have a sign outside. You call that number. No one gets back to you. There is literally no connection whatsoever. These problems happened while it was an Airbnb for this owner. There's no hardship here because that thing was rented for years prior to this owner. We have people going in and out. We have no one to contact if there's a problem. No one contacted us prior to this meeting. This place is a wreck. And so what I'll do is I'm going to send the photographs to the committee, and I'll send them to whoever else wants to receive them, including Mr. Young.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. May I address his comments, please?
Oh, sure. If you would just keep it succinct.
Yeah, thank you. So regarding the communication about this particular, no one contacted the neighbors. This forum is where we speak to the neighbors regarding the issue. So we're required to notify you of this meeting, and that's what this forum is for. Now, regarding the partying and things like that, if the property were to be rented, even long term, it's still nothing prevents grad students from coming outside, from smoking outside, and doing the things that you mentioned. If the property were to be rented on a more long-term basis, these are issues that will still be prevalent regardless of the particular use. What we're trying to do is we can control that a little bit more when we have when there are gaps in occupancy, with the Airbnb use. Again, if there's anything that is in a violation of an Airbnb regulation, again, the occupancy is terminated immediately, and they are asked to leave the property. With regards to the communications with the owner, again, there is a sign up, there is numbers up, and there are things that we could do a little bit better to make sure that there is open communication with the neighbors, and ensure that the neighbors' complaints and issues are addressed in a more timely manner. We can provide some direct numbers to the property managers, again, who manage the property on a 24/7 basis.
Okay, thank you. I think that we are just clearly hearing the zoning matter here, and then also a little bit of character. So thank you. Is there anybody else from the committee that, from the community that would like to have a question? Diane Siegel.
Hi, I'm Diane Siegel-Danoff. I live at 2428 Spruce. And I just wanted to echo the comments of Jim Ronka. We've noticed also these problems with the exterior of the property, and we strongly oppose the variance and the proposed use.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping us succinct to point. Jess Coles.
Hi, I'm Jessica Colas. I live at 2410 Spruce. Again, I would like to applaud Jim for all his comments. I actually did not know it was an Airbnb until I spoke with his wife, but I did notice people with suitcases coming in and out all the time, and trash being left on the sidewalk at all times of the week. And I have to say, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I am not comfortable with having daily rentals, 4 doors down from me. So that's all I would like to say.
Thank you. I see a TCDL.
Yeah, that's Tom DiLorenzo. I live at 2406 Spruce. And sticking strictly to the issue of hardship, I don't know how the owner can say this would be a hardship not to be able to do this when, as Jim said, the property was rented out long-term for years without any difficulty finding tenants. 2408 on the other side of me is a long-term rental apartments, constantly rented out. No problem getting tenants for that. This is a desirable neighborhood, so I don't see how there's any hardship in saying that this should be a regular rental apartment, multi-unit building, as opposed to running a hotel out of a residential neighborhood.
Thank you. Quite well made. Is there anybody else from the committee that has a new point? Sorry, from the community. Okay, then. Thank you very much. I think we can move on to the next case. The next case is 1720 Chestnut Street. This one's a little bit different in that this is just a referral, which the difference between a refusal and a referral is that a referral is typically accepted by the ZBA unless there is strong reason for community pushback or a community opposition. So if the applicant for 1720 would like to present, this is an application for an assembly and entertainment at a sit-down restaurant at ground floor and at basement in an existing structure. And the proposed sit-down restaurant is a special exception under the Chestnut and Walnut Street West corridor, which is the reason for the referral.
Thank you, Rebecca. Michael Mattioni. I am the attorney for the applicant, which is an LLC, 17 Chess 20 LLC. And I have with me Avram Hornick, the principal and the applicant, and Jeremy Danley, the architect as well. We are proposing to have, like you said, a sit-down restaurant in this building. This is at 1720 Chestnut. Avram is a successful operator of many restaurants and entertainment venues in Philadelphia, including nearby establishments such as Rosie's Tacos at 2220 Walnut, Harper's Garden at 31 South 18th Street, Noche at 1901 Chestnut, and the Concourse Bar at 1635 Market Street. Avram signed a lease for the ground floor and lower level at 1720 Chestnut, and he hopes to operate a sports bar and casual restaurant on the first floor and an assembly and entertainment facility in the lower level for private parties such as rehearsal dinners, retirement dinners, bar mitzvahs, birthdays, and similar types of celebrations. He would include live music and dancing in the lower level, and assembly and entertainment is permitted in the CMX4 zoning district. The indoor restaurant use, the sit-down restaurant use, is permitted in CMX4 zoning class, but due to the overlay, it is required to obtain a special exception. If I may share my screen, I'd like to show the photos and floor plans, et cetera.
Yes, please do.
Sure. Okay. Excuse me. First, I just want to show the referral to the zoning board. And like we said, it's a referral, not a refusal, and the standard is a much lower standard. And this is the building, and it's this floor and the lower level. There are apartments above. And these are the floor plans. The first one is for the lower level, and you can see there are steps at the front. In the very front, there's storage area, walk-in cooler, and then there's steps to the lower level where it will have a bar and the special events floor. Then in the back, there's steps up. The restrooms are in the back. And here is the main floor. Whoops, sorry. The main floor of the establishment, and you come in off of Chestnut Street. There's an entranceway, a foyer. You can go downstairs if you're going to a private party. These are stairs to go to the apartments upstairs. Otherwise, you come into the main dining room and bar area. And this is a traditional dining room and bar with a sports bar theme. There's the kitchen in the back, the restrooms, stairs, obviously, to go back downstairs, and existing sidewalk in Stock Exchange Place, which is a very small street, service street, almost an alley, really. Here's an elevation plan for the exterior. Again, there's only limited exterior changes being proposed. It's mainly just changing around the interior. On the interior, there's the first floor as it presently exists. And as you can see, it's been vacant for quite some time now. And then there are a few photos showing again the lower level as well, which would be completely renovated and changed up. Excuse me. So with respect to the operation, here's the main floor again. There'll be an entranceway for patrons to come in. Then we have the bar and seating area, kitchen and restrooms, et cetera, as I have shown. The restaurant will be a sports themed restaurant and bar. It will feature a menu from the chef at Rosie's Tacos with some additional items usually featured in a sports bar. All cutlery and utensils will be non-disposable. There will be no music played outside of the restaurant and no music audible outside of the restaurant. There will be incidental takeout, no more than 10% of sales. Trash will be stored. Well, at the front of the building, they will have periodic trash pickup during operating hours to make sure that the area remains clean in front of the establishment. The restaurant will be open 7 days a week till 2 a.m. The ventilation for the kitchen will be through the roof, and the architect can speak to that if anybody's in questions. There will be no operable windows. Trash will be stored in the dumpster on Stock Exchange Place. As you can see, Stock Exchange Place is a service street, and it has numerous dumpsters all up and down the street from other establishments, and that's where trash would be stored. Excuse me. Trash would be picked up after 8 a.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. on weekends. Deliveries would be made on Stock Exchange Place after 8 a.m. on Monday to Friday and after 9 a.m. on weekends. The restaurant will be RAMP certified by the LCB, that is the Responsible Alcohol Management Program certification that establishments can attain, and that will be the case here. We believe that this meets the requirements for a special exception under the zoning code. It's a sit-down restaurant as shown by the review by L&I in requiring a special exception and giving the referral. Avram has a long history of successful operation of restaurants, like I said, especially in this area. And on this block in particular, there are numerous other restaurants, including Grand Cafe L'Aquila, the Bruno Brothers, Ancient Spirits and Grill, Just Salad, Kura Sushi, Paris Baguette, 10 Asian Food Hall, Kava, and just across the street at 1801 Chestnut is Continental Midtown. He will have dining. He will have a bar on the main floor. The lower level, there'll be special events and parties. We believe that we do meet the requirements for a special exception. The operation is not going to cause congestion in the public streets. It's not that big an establishment. It's a commercial area on a commercial corridor. It's the kind of use that this is zoned for. A special exception is a conditionally permitted use. It's not a variance. We don't have to show a hardship. We're not going to impair air and light to neighboring properties. There's no new construction other than interior proposed. It's going to help out the building. It's been vacant for at least 3 years, help out the block. You have a well-established restaurateur coming in to run the operation. So with that, if we have any questions, Avram, I see, is here and available to answer any questions about the operation. If there was a design question or something, we also have our architect here.
That's great. Thank you for a very thorough presentation. I'll start with the committee. Charles.
Mr. Mattioni, Charles Robbins, we know one another.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're needing an assembly license due to the live music.
He will likely need a special assembly occupancy license, yes.
Due to the live music. And we had problems with Drinkers Pubs, of course. We were very familiar with Oven having other restaurants. Can you tell me why you will not have internal trash storage? We are a committee that does try to have, although other operators from previous dumpsters on the blocks like stock exchange. Now, new operators, we would like to see internal trash storage. Can you have your architect address that, please?
I think Mr. Hornick can address that better.
Yeah, I would be happy to, Charles. What we proposed is that, an agreement, which is if Stock Exchange Street should ever become something other than a utility street, at that point, we would start storing the trash inside. Stock Exchange Street on that block is the Sofitel Hotel, essentially takes up the entire half of that block. And then the other half is Chestnut Street. So it's very difficult to store trash inside because it's hard to keep that area clean when you're moving trash multiple times. So ideally, you have trash cans in a restaurant, and then you put the trash cans directly in the dumpster. And that's how you don't spread trash all over the place. So if you have an internal trash storage, you have to then take the trash, move it to the internal trash area, and then move it outside, and then move it back inside once the trash gets picked up. Each one of those points creates an opportunity for garbage to fall on the ground, which creates a rodent problem. So in an area which is residential, obviously storing trash inside you have to do because you're not going to have a dumpster outside. But in cases like this, where the Stock Exchange Street has a dozen different dumpsters out there, and the Sofitel essentially uses that area as their utility street, I think we're weighing the two things. The risk and the harm of storing the trash inside is greater than having the dumpster outside when all the other dumpsters are out there. But I am willing to agree that if sometime in the future when Stock Exchange Street stops having so many dumpsters, we would move the trash inside at that point. But it just seems like it doesn't make a lot of sense at this time.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, but we are very familiar with Stock Exchange Street. We're very familiar with Randstad Street. And when new operators do come in, it's a very common proviso to ask for internal storage for trash. Okay, we'll get off that topic. The only other question I have is, am I right to say that your front windows will remain permanent and not open? Is that correct?
That's really up to the committee. I'm willing to go either way. Like, obviously, we're open for lunch. It's nice to be able to open the windows to bring people in. However, if that's important to the community, it's certainly not a hill that I'm willing to die on. Like, it's not that important, but it would be a nice thing to have. I'm willing to limit the hours. So to say that the windows have to be closed by 10 p.m., but it would be nice to be able to be open for lunch because there is a lot of street traffic on that street. But if it's important to the committee, I'm willing to let that go.
Understood. And I'll stop from here. But the only one concern is the assembly license because of the live music. And that's our concern. So yeah, we'll discuss it in the closed session.
If I can just answer that question, City of Philadelphia has, Chuck and I worked on this a lot over the years. It's a binary choice. Like, if you have any type of entertainment, if you have a piano player in the corner, the City of Philadelphia considers that you needing a special assembly license. And they will not give you a special assembly license unless your zoning specifically says you're allowed to have live music. The idea for this place is, we do a lot of events. I have Harper's Garden around the corner, Rosie's. I would agree that we're not going to have any kind of dance floor or any kind of dance lights or anything to make it nightclubby. But, if people have a 40th birthday party, they're going to want to hear some music and be able to stand up and dance. And the way the zoning code is written, unless you have live music in your code, they do not give you a special assembly occupancy license. It would be nice if there was a way to do it halfway, but there's just no way to do that. So I'm willing to add provisos to essentially make sure the place is not going to be a nightclub. It's not the intention of being a nightclub, but when you have private events, people want to dance. People want, a DJ. It's like something that people want to have. So it's and I'm also willing to agree that the primary use of the will always be a sit-down restaurant. So if there's a way to say that, hey, the primary use is a sit-down restaurant, but there you could have this accessory like live entertainment or something along that nature, I'm totally willing to agree to that.
And Avram, isn't that basically going to be held in the lower level, not on the first floor?
That's correct.
Right.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else from the committee that has any other questions for Avram or Michael?
Yes, thank you. This is Veronica Aplenc. Thank you for a clear presentation. Can you remind us, what is the square footage on the first floor and in the lower level?
I think it's about 2,500 square feet per level. Jeremy, do you know the exact number?
I can get that for you. I think it's about
2,550.
3,000 on the first floor and less on the lower floor because you don't have as much space down there.
It's a classic Philadelphia building, 20 feet by like 100 feet. It's very typical of those types of buildings on, Chestnut Street and Market Street.
It's roughly 22 by 150. Yes.
Thank you.
About 50% of that space is taken up by back of the house stuff, kitchens, bathrooms, storage, and things like that. So the occupancy will be somewhere between 150 and 180 people, depending on how L&I decides to do it in terms of the number of seats, if that's helpful.
Great. Yes, that is helpful. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Great, thank you. If there are no other questions from the committee or comments, I'll open it up to the community. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Emily Smith, if you can state your address too, please.
Hi, my name's Emily. I live at 127 South 18th Street. I was notified about this and it got sent out, I think, months ago, but I found it this morning, so I decided to attend. Overall, I'd just like to say that, I think this is going to be a great addition to that block. It has been vacant for a number of years, so walking by it, I'll be excited that there's something new and that there's a restaurant here. I had a couple questions. My first question has to do with it being a restaurant, so it's going to be noisy, especially for the people above. What type of insulation or vibration proofing have you thought of?
So, Emily, I've been doing this for a long time, and this is the major issue that you have having a restaurant in residential areas. What's great about Philadelphia is it's a mixed use area, right? You have residential, you have office, you have retail, you have restaurants, all kind of together. So soundproofing is an art. It's really important. So one of the things that we're doing is we're removing any type of louder music would be in the basement. So the most important thing is density of materials to prevent sound from conveying to a residential area around there. So you have doors that close, you eliminate all the air gaps. I've run live music venues in the city, and we use a consulting company if there's any kind of noise issues called Metropolitan Acoustics. And they come out and they do all this testing, to make sure, and then they essentially design a way. But the first thing we'll do is when we do the renovation, we'll add essentially extra layers of drywall and masks to essentially make sure that the sound stays in the space. In addition, there's the liquor law says very specifically that no noise can be heard outside the premises. We're willing to put a zoning proviso of that in as well.
My other question was about the street cleaning that you talked a little bit about. Can you expand on that? What exactly that's going to consist of?
I don't believe we mentioned street cleaning, but
did Michael then? I forget.
We had discussed you would have somebody sweep the sidewalks in front.
Yes, of course. So that sweep the sidewalk, really power wash. So every day someone comes out, sweeps, power washes, as well as power washes the area of the back. It's part of the daily cleaning that we have.
Well, thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Emily.
Great. Thank you. And if nobody else has any questions, I think we are all set on this item as well. That was a very great and thorough presentation, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think at this time, we can change to we can end the community portion of the meeting. So I'm going to ask if you are not in the zoning committee to go ahead and leave the meeting, and we will continue in a closed session.
Great. Rachel, Rebecca, do you just notify us tomorrow or what, what's
You
your process?
you will get an email probably tonight, but it will be definitely by tomorrow with the decision, with the
Thank you.
committee's decision.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
And if we could stop the recording.
I was just going to say, I'll stop or Rebecca, feel free.